The Robinson family got lost in space.
Yeah, the series was set in the far future, 1997.
Yeah.
Do you really think a boy could have survived all alone?
Fans never noticed that Danger Will Robinson, the most famous catchphrase in science fiction, was only spoken once in 83 episodes. Yet it became so iconic that people who've never seen the show still quote it.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
But that was just the beginning of what they missed. The original pilot cost $600,000, making it the most expensive TV pilot ever filmed.
The pilot was originally called Space Family Robinson, which pretty much summed it up. Here's this family, and they're stranded on an unknown planet.
For 3 seasons, Lost in Space hid secrets that would shock its biggest fans. So let's get into it. In 1964, producer Irwin Allen completed what he believed was his masterpiece. The pilot episode, No Place to Hide, had cost an unprecedented $600,000, equivalent to over $5 million today. It featured cutting-edge special effects, real jetpacks, and a massive cast led by Guy Williams, fresh off his success as Zorro. There was just one problem. CBS executives burst into laughter when they watched it. Allen was horrified. He jumped from his chair to stop the screening, certain his career was over. But the laughter had revealed something crucial. The pilot was too serious, too hardware-driven. CBS executives decided what the series needed was a recurring villain to create ongoing conflict. What they got instead would transform television history. The original pilot featured the Robinson family aboard the Gemini 12, setting off on a 98-year journey to Alpha Centauri. No Dr. Smith, no robot, just a family drama about survival in space, more Swiss Family Robinson than space opera.
We just took off and crash landed and had to deal with the alien. It was a pioneer family dealing with the unknown alien environment. That was the concept of Lost in Space.
The Gemini 12 was pushed off course by a meteor storm, crash landing on an alien planet inhabited by Cyclops giants. For 29 minutes, viewers would have watched Professor John Robinson lead his family through harsh weather conditions and dangerous creatures, establishing a shelter and learning to survive. It was deadly serious science fiction, filmed in the Mojave Desert near a restricted military base, where the craggy landscape served perfectly as an alien world. The special effects rivaled anything seen in feature films, and the family dynamics felt real and grounded. CBS bought the series but immediately commissioned a second pilot. The first would never air during the show's original run. When it finally surfaced in the 1990s, Lost in Space fans were stunned. This was the show they could have had, a thoughtful exploration of family bonds tested by the ultimate survival challenge. Instead, CBS's decision to add conflict would create one of television's most memorable villains and change the entire trajectory of the series. When CBS ordered Lost in Space to series, they made one demand that would haunt the production for 3 years: build the most impressive spacecraft television had ever seen. The Jupiter 2 interior set cost $350,000, equivalent to $2.8 million today, making it the most expensive television set ever constructed. The multi-level spacecraft featured a working control room, individual quarters for each family member, and dozens of blinking lights and controls that actually function. Every panel could be operated, every screen displayed information, and the attention to detail was obsessive. Irwin Allen pointed to the massive set and quipped, "If Lost in Space doesn't run 3 years, we'll all go bankrupt." He wasn't joking. A CBS executive was more cynical. "We've already spent $500,000 on a pilot we couldn't use. That's a hell of a lot to spend on a Saturday morning cartoon." The Jupiter 2 standing sets were indeed the most expensive in television history. When production costs spiraled during the 3rd season, growing from $130,980 per episode in season 1 to $164,788 in season 3, it was largely due to maintaining and operating that elaborate spacecraft. The actors' salaries had nearly doubled during the run, but the real budget killer was the set itself. Every episode required dozens of technicians to operate the various controls and maintain the complex lighting systems. The rotating sections had to be manually operated, and the multiple levels required different camera setups for every scene. 20th Century Fox had recently incurred massive budget overruns on the film Cleopatra, which caused studio-wide budget cuts. When CBS demanded a 15% reduction in the season 4 budget, Allen became furious during a negotiating conference with CBS chief executive Bill Paley. The most expensive set in television history had created the most expensive science fiction series ever produced. When Lost in Space was canceled after 3 seasons, the elaborate Jupiter 2 interior was eventually dismantled and sold off piece by piece. The irony was complete. The very thing that made Lost in Space visually spectacular was also what just weeks after CBS bought Lost in Space, Gene Roddenberry walked into the same programming department with a very different kind of science fiction show. His pitch meeting with James Aubrey, CBS's head of programming, would change television history, just not the way anyone expected. Aubrey listened politely to Roddenberry's concept for Star Trek, then shook his head. The decision seemed logical at the time. Lost in Space was family-friendly, featured a recognizable star in Guy Williams, and had the backing of proven producer Irwin Allen. Star Trek was cerebral, dealt with complex social issues, and starred an unknown Canadian actor named William Shatner. CBS believed they had made the smart choice. Lost in Space would appeal to children and families, generate massive toy sales, and run for years in syndication. Star Trek seemed too sophisticated, too risky. NBC picked up Star Trek after CBS rejected it, but the series struggled with ratings throughout its 3-season run. Meanwhile, Lost in Space ranked higher consistently, though neither show ever broke into the top 30 programs. The competition between the shows became personal. Gene Roddenberry and his team functioned as superb PR agents, constantly promoting Star Trek while simultaneously criticizing any competing science fiction series. Lost in Space, 1999, and later Babylon 5 all faced what one critic called the wrath of Trekkies. In Starlog magazine interviews, Star Trek's original cast members would consistently disparage other science fiction shows as inferior. William Shatner once said, "Lost in Space accomplishes what it sets out to do, but Star Trek is not the same thing," a backhanded compliment that became typical of the Trek team's approach. The irony deepened over time. Star Trek became a cultural phenomenon in syndication and spawned multiple series and films. Lost in Space faded from memory, remembered mainly for campy moments and rubber monsters. But in 1965, CBS executives were certain they had backed the winner. Lost in Space seemed like the safe commercial choice that would dominate primetime for years. They couldn't have been more wrong about which show would define the future of science fiction television. Bob May was the grandson of vaudeville comedian Sheik Johnson, half of the famous Olsen and Johnson comedy team. By 1965, he was a veteran actor and stuntman looking for steady work when he heard about an unusual opportunity on the 20th Century Fox lot. Irwin Allen needed someone to fit inside a 7-foot robot costume. The job interview was simple. If you can fit in the suit, you've got the job. May donned the robot suit for the first time in front of Allen and made it fit. When he emerged from the metal and fiberglass costume, he was cut and bleeding from multiple sharp edges inside the suit, but he was also employed.
I had to walk the entire outfit. I weighed 350 pounds. I got out of the robot, I was covered with blood from head to toe. It cut me up bad.
The robot costume had been designed by Robert Kinoshita, who had also created Robbie the Robot for Forbidden Planet. But where Robbie was built for a film with limited shooting days, the Lost in Space robot had to function for years of television production. The metal edges inside the suit cut May's legs so severely that changes had to be made. The articulated bellows-covered legs were bolted together, and the robot was pulled along by a wire instead of walking. A new lower section was constructed with the legs cut off at the knee, creating what the cast and crew informally called the Bermuda Shorts version. This shorter suit was used for close-ups, or when the robot stood behind something that hid May's legs protruding from the bottom. Because it was so difficult to get into the suit, May would stay inside even during breaks in filming. He couldn't respond to external cues, so he memorized the lines of every actor in each episode to know when his cues were coming. During breaks, May would smoke cigarettes inside the suit, with smoke billowing out through the vents. The costume was even fitted with an internal ashtray. Once Irwin Allen arrived on set and saw smoke pouring from the robot, he wasn't aware May was inside and thought the suit was malfunctioning. When Allen discovered May smoking inside, he told him that whenever the script called for the robot to emit smoke, May should provide it himself. May appeared in all 83 episodes inside that prop costume, providing the physical performance while Dick Tufeld dubbed the voice. For 3 years, he endured cuts, cramped conditions, and limited visibility to bring one of television's most beloved characters to life. The man inside the robot suit literally bled for his art day after day, episode after episode. Jonathan Harris beat out 2 other actors for the role of Doctor, Zachary Smith, Jack Elam, and Carol O'Connor. But the character Harris was hired to play bore no resemblance to the Dr. Smith that made him famous. The original Dr. Smith was written as a completely evil, utterly competent saboteur. He was supposed to be killed off after the first 5-episode story arc, his mission complete and his usefulness to the plot exhausted. Harris looked at the script and saw disaster approaching. Why would they keep such a despicable jackass around? He wondered. If Smith remained nothing but a villain, the character had no future. So Harris began rewriting his lines and redefining his character without telling anyone. He started by playing Smith in an attention-getting, flamboyant style, adding comic flourishes to the villain's dialogue. When that worked, he began ad-libbing scenes with colorful, alliterative insults directed at the robot.
Are you laughing at me, you bubble-headed booby?
These weren't in the script. Harris was improvising a new character on camera, transforming Smith from a sinister spy into a cowardly comic foil. By the end of the first season, Harris had single-handedly created the Dr. Smith that fans remember, a self-serving coward whose moral pretensions contrasted hilariously with his actual behavior. The character's alliterative insults became a regular feature, working their way into popular culture. Harris truly created the character viewers loved to hate, the coward who would hide behind a little boy while claiming to be protecting him. Irwin Allen loved what Harris was doing and gave him carte blanche to continue developing Smith as a comic character. What had started as a temporary villain became the show's breakout star. The evil Dr. Smith died after 5 episodes. The bumbling, pompous, cowardly Dr. Smith was born to live forever. Danger, Will Robinson is arguably the most famous catchphrase in science fiction television history. It's been quoted, parodied, and referenced countless times over 5 decades. Most people assume the robot said it in every episode. The truth is more startling. The robot spoke those exact words only once in the entire 83-episode series.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
Dick Tufeld, who provided the robot's voice, confirmed this shocking fact. While the robot frequently warned of danger, danger to various family members, the specific phrase danger, Will Robinson appeared in just 1 episode. The phrase became iconic precisely because it was specific enough to be immediately recognizable as a Lost in Space reference, even though the robot almost never said those exact words. The marketing team accidentally created one of television's most enduring catchphrases by promoting something that barely existed in the show itself. By the time fans realized the truth, the phrase had already entered popular culture permanently. Before he became the most famous film composer in Hollywood history, John Williams was a young television composer credited as Johnny Williams. His work on Lost in Space was largely overlooked at the time, but represented some of his most innovative early composition. Williams created the iconic theme music for the first 2 seasons of Lost in Space, then composed a completely different, more vibrant fanfare for the 3rd season as the show took on a campier tone. His music perfectly captured both the serious science fiction atmosphere of early episodes and the lighter adventure spirit of later ones. But Williams only contributed music to 4 of the series' 83 episodes. The rest of the series reused Bernard Herrmann's eerie score from the 1951 science fiction classic The Day the Earth Stood Still, along with music from other sources. The unaired original pilot relied entirely on Herrmann's music, and 9 episodes throughout the series continued using those compositions. This created an unusual musical identity for Lost in Space. Partly John Williams, partly Bernard Herrmann, and partly stock music from various sources. Williams' theme for Lost in Space has been referenced and honored in subsequent adaptations. Electronic group Apollo 440 remixed and rearranged the theme for the end credits of the 1998 film, and this track became their highest charting single. Christopher Leonard's score for the 2018 Netflix series occasionally quotes from Williams's Season 3 theme. though sparingly to preserve its impact. La La Land Records eventually released a complete 12-CD set of music from the entire series, giving Williams' contributions their proper recognition decades later. The irony is profound. One of the most famous film composers in history wrote some of his most memorable early work for Lost in Space, but it was overshadowed by borrowed music from other sources. Williams was already demonstrating the musical sophistication that would later define Star Wars, Close Encounters, and Superman. But in 1965, he was just Johnny Williams, another television composer creating themes for science fiction shows. Only in retrospect can we hear the seeds of greatness in those Lost in Space themes. Dick Tufeld was already the narrator of Lost in Space when he was asked to provide the robot's voice. What seemed like a simple additional job became one of television's most distinctive vocal performances. Tufeld gave the robot a precise, slightly nasal delivery that suggested both mechanical origins and underlying warmth. The character's famous phrases, "warning, warning, danger, danger," and "that does not compute," became instantly recognizable thanks to Tufeld's specific vocal choices. The robot's personality emerged from the interaction between Bob May's physical performance inside the suit and Tufeld's vocal interpretation. May couldn't hear the dialogue being recorded, so he had to memorize everyone's lines to know when to move and gesture. Tufeld, meanwhile, had to watch May's movements and create vocal reactions that matched the robot's body language. The process required extraordinary coordination between two performers who couldn't communicate during filming. The robot's relationship with Dr. Smith became the series' comic centerpiece, with Tufeld playing the straight man to Harris's increasingly outrageous behavior. The robot's patient, logical responses to Smith's melodramatic schemes created a perfect comedy dynamic. Tufeld later said the robot was one of his favorite characters to voice because it allowed him to explore both humor and genuine emotion. Despite being a machine, the robot displayed loyalty, friendship, and even protective instincts toward the Robinson family. The voice work required technical precision as well as acting skill. Tufeld had to sync his delivery to Bob May's lip movements, visible through the robot's transparent head section. Every line had to match the physical performance exactly. When Lost in Space ended, Tufeld continued voiceover work, but never found another character as memorable as the robot. He reprised the role in the 1973 animated special and various reunion projects, maintaining the exact vocal characteristics decades later. The robot's voice became so iconic that Tufeld was frequently asked to perform it at conventions and special events. Fans would request specific catchphrases, which he would deliver with the same mechanical precision he had used in the original series. Dick Tufeld gave voice to one of television's most beloved artificial characters, creating a personality that was simultaneously robotic and deeply human. Lost in Space ended its original run on March 6, 1968, seemingly destined for obscurity. The series had become increasingly campy, ratings were declining, and CBS showed no interest in continuing the expensive production. For most observers, Lost in Space appeared to be a failed experiment in television science fiction. But something unexpected happened in syndication. Local television stations around the world began airing Lost in Space reruns, and a new generation of children discovered the Robinson family's adventures. The series found its true audience 20 years after its cancellation. The campy elements that had embarrassed critics became selling points for young viewers. Dr. Smith's theatrical villainy, the robot's catchphrases, and the colorful alien encounters were exactly what children wanted from science fiction television. Lost in Space became a global phenomenon in reruns. The series aired successfully in dozens of countries, with the robot becoming an international icon. Danger, Will Robinson was translated into multiple languages, but retained its recognition factor worldwide. The merchandising potential that CBS had originally envisioned finally materialized in the 1970s and 1980s. Robot toys, lunchboxes, and costumes became popular items. The series that had been too expensive to continue in 1968 was generating profits 20 years later through licensing deals. John F. Kennedy Jr. grew up watching Lost in Space reruns and later cited it as his favorite childhood television show. The series influenced a generation of future filmmakers, including several who would work on Star Wars and other science fiction franchises. The 1998 film adaptation, despite mixed reviews, grossed $136.2 million worldwide and introduced the Robinson family to a new generation. Gary Oldman's reimagined Dr. Smith and the updated special effects proved that the basic concept remained commercially viable. The 2018 Netflix series completed a successful 3-season run, demonstrating that Lost in Space could work as serious science fiction. The reboot returned to the family survival themes of the original pilot, proving that Alan's initial vision had been sound. The series that almost never happened became a legacy that almost couldn't be stopped. From a $600,000 pilot that CBS couldn't use to a global franchise worth millions, Lost in Space proved that sometimes getting lost is just the beginning of finding something greater. In the end, the Robinson family had accomplished their original mission after all. They had successfully colonized new worlds, not in the Alpha Centauri system, but in the imaginations of viewers around the world who would never forget their incredible journey through the cosmos. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.